get the reference, we will be reviewing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
Yes, Mutant Mayhem.
But before we do that, let's chat. Okay, you are, I don't know, what would you call yourself? A turtle head?
I don't know if there is like a name for turtle fandom, you know.
So, but suffice it to say, you were a long time.
I am a fan of the Turtles from the OG from back in '86. I cannot say that I read the original comics, but I read the very first one. But I was the target audience. But I am a turtle. Yeah, a turtle head. I don't know what you'd call us, but I have been a fan of the Ninja Turtles. I think I can legitimately say at this age the majority of my life.
Right, because 1986 was the first one.
Yeah, it's when the cartoon debuted, I believe, and then
you would have been 7.
Yeah, so I was right in that age range.
Prime turtle.
Yep, and it's kind of funny the movies we're going to be talking about over the next couple weeks because I transitioned out of the Transformers right into the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Like the Transformers were on their way out and the Turtles were on their way in, and I was
you
that.
You just rode that way.
I did, and I am not ashamed of it.
So you were a big fan. So what about the cartoon originally caught your eye?
I think just the abnormality of it. I think that the Turtles have always rode a kind of a dual wave of a really interesting concept.
Okay.
You know, the idea of Ninja Turtles.
Right.
Like that. To kids now, that's not going to seem revolutionary because they've been living with it. They've never lived in a time
without Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, or its many offshoots. You know, the biker mice from Mars, or the
or even the X-Men.
Yeah, or the Street Sharks, or anything like that. But so it was that, and better movie critics than I have kind of said that the Turtles, the original comic, the black and white Eastman and Laird comic, had the great concept, and the cartoon had personality.
Right. So, like, the Turtles' personality really drew you in.
Not even just their individual personalities, but it had personality. Like, it was bright, it was colorful, it was weird, and yet urban.
Plus, I was trying to remember, they were actually teenaged in the original cartoon?
They're always supposed to be teenagers, yeah.
Okay.
Hence the name.
So, did they feel like teenagers in the cartoon?
You know, I'm going to be honest and say no.
Okay.
And say that when we get to the review, that's one thing I think this film really hits, is that I don't think they've ever felt really like teenagers.
Okay, well, leave that there and save that for the review. But, okay, so what about, like, the whole cowabunga kind of, you know, party boy, pizza kind of thing?
I mean, all of that just hit just perfectly for kids my age at that time. You know, every kid loves pizza, but once the Turtles started eating it, it became the food.
Yeah.
It became the party
and everything,
food.
I remember everything becoming pizza flavored.
Yes.
Pizza flavored combos, you know?
Yep.
And I will say that the way that they animated pizza made you want there. I have never eaten a pizza that tastes as good as the animated pizza.
I know, right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Just once you want that pizza feeling that you got from watching the Turtles.
Yeah.
So, okay, so what other 80s cartoons kind of formed Brandon?
Oh, there are a lot. I'm a big fan of the 80s and the 80s cartoons. You know, you have to kind of talk about it. You have to kind of acknowledge it that, of course, the cartoons of that time were all, you know, half-hour commercials.
Oh, true.
Because Reagan deregulated everything, and you know, television was now able to do that. So, And a lot of people will say that robbed kids of a lot of imagination, and I'm going to say no, because I think in their attempt to really sell us toys, they came up with some really fascinating worlds and characters. Like, of course, I mentioned the Transformers. I loved G1 Transformers. I was not a G.I. Joe fan, but there were things like there was Brave Star.
Okay.
The only Native American superhero of the time
was Brave Star?
Yeah.
He-Man?
He-Man, yeah, I remember He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. I must say that upon rewatch, She-Ra actually is more interesting of a character than He-Man ever was.
Which is why they rebooted She-Ra.
Yeah.
And not He-Man.
Well, actually, they did reboot He-Man. Yeah, Kevin Smith did it.
Oh, well, the She-Ra one's better.
Yeah, no, it is.
In that, okay, so our age difference is not huge, 4.5.
I mean, you make it sound huge.
Well, yeah, because I'm much younger. I'm your young trophy girlfriend, obviously. But, it's 4 years, but at that time period, it made a big difference. Mm-hmm. Not to mention, I did have a lot more things marketed to me from a feminine point of view than a masculine point of view. So I was watching things like Care Bears.
Well, I watched Care Bears. I loved the Care Bears when I was little.
Okay. Care Bears. Strawberry Shortcake was a big one.
Can't say that I ever got into Strawberry Shortcake.
Rainbow Bright.
I actually, believe it or not, I watched Rainbow Bright.
Did you?
I did. Believe it or not.
I feel like a lot of my personal style is rooted in Rainbow Bright.
I can see that.
Mixed with a little bit of one that I forget actually existed, but now my TikTok adventures have proven that I didn't dream it up. The Gummy Bears.
The Disney version of the Gummy Bears. Yeah.
I think that was probably one of my favorites. The Gummy Bears.
The Disney Afternoon had the best theme songs of that entire generation, and that's a generation where the theme songs were so vital. But man, the Disney Afternoon went hard. Yeah. Gummy bears bouncing here and there and everywhere. Yeah, no, I remember the Gummy Bears. They were awesome.
Well, I liked the whole concept that they were these cottagecore type of people that lived this nice family life, but also they could kick people's butts in nobody's business.
Did it ever bother you? This is the kind of thing that always messed my head up, because even as a kid, and I guess this should have been foretelling my future as a theater person and a director and a writer and all that. Did it ever bother you with the Gummy Bears that you never knew who the hell Sonny and Cubby were the kids of?
It didn't bother me at the time because I was, like I said, significantly younger than you. So it didn't really, I guess it never popped into my head to wonder who they were.
Yeah, that kind of thing. I remember that with the Care Bears too, Hugs and Tugs.
Okay.
The two babies. It's whose children are you?
They're the children of the clouds.
It's where did these babies come from?
You don't think that the Care Bears get it on? You can't be that happy without orgasms.
I always used to theorize that Grumpy Bear, he must have been the only sober person in a hippie commune. Yeah. Just everybody else, peace and love. He's like, Jesus Christ, get me out of here.
Okay, what about, did you ever watch a show? I can't remember if it was a Saturday morning show or what, but it was not a cartoon. It was a live action show called Today's Special.
It sounds vaguely familiar, but I do not recall it.
It took place in a department store.
Okay.
And after hours, I'm trying to remember this because there's not a whole lot on the internet about it, but the mannequin would come to life.
Well, I've seen the Twilight Zone episode like that, but anyway.
He and I want to say the maintenance worker, maybe she was a security guard, they would go on adventures, and it had a lot of puppets, little mice puppets. And I loved the whole world they built. I was and it reminds me a lot of our middle kid CJ, I was kind of obsessed with all these little miniature worlds that people would build. That's kind of like the Muppet thing with me too.
Was that a Canadian show?
No, because we lived in Michigan when I watched it.
Oh, then
So yeah, I'll have to look it up.
Yeah.
I swear I didn't come up with this in a fever dream. I swear it really existed.
Isn't it amazing how many things like that when we're at that age and you only remember bits and pieces of it?
Yes.
And then when you try to describe it to somebody,
it just sounds totally ridiculous.
We did that like a few summers ago, my folks and I, when I was trying to remember all of the books they used to read us in elementary school, and I was like, I can only remember like parts of it, and I was looking them up to try to prove that they actually existed.
Like How to Eat Fried Worms.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Like that's an actual book.
That's a book. Yeah, and they made a cartoon out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, another one that was kind of in that boy, good guy, bad guy thing that I just the aesthetic was really cool. Was one called Silverhawks.
Okay, I don't know this one at all.
This is like a space opera. It was like these people with like cybernetic enhancements that they based on hawks for some reason.
Interesting.
That could fly in space, and they're taking on the space mob. And of course there's like casinos, and there was a neutral zone, and there was a prison planet. It was really imaginative. Wow. And of course, I love how every cartoon of that time, to justify its own existence, at least for the boys. I don't know about they did it for She-Ra, but at the end of every episode, they had to have the moral.
Oh, well, you didn't really do that so much with a lot of the ones that I watched, but I can remember like the whole G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, G.I. Joe is the most famous one, but I remember Silverhawks, instead of like doing, the moral of today's story, kids, was don't touch, things. It was, they would teach you about the solar system.
Oh.
And teach about space and things. Like they had like a quiz bit at the end of it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so that one actually taught you things. But yes, I'll always remember, because this is how you can spot an 80s kid. If you say, and now you know, they answer, and knowing is half the battle.
Yeah,
that's how you know. Because I'll always remember the G.I. Joe ones where it's the little kids, and they're out playing, and they're like, oh, look at this! I found some crack! Let's smoke it! And like, one of them, wait a minute there, kids! Oh my God, it's Portline! And he's like, you shouldn't smoke crack. That's terrible. You're right, Portline. Hooray!
I mean, that one really took off when the Reagan war on drugs.
Yeah.
Really.
But before I diss them too much, I have to say they did teach me how to stop a bloody nose.
Okay, with the tampon.
No, they did not cover that. Squeeze the nose and tilt your head back.
Well, technically, that's not how you're supposed to do it anymore. You can drown yourself in your own blood.
But that's how they told us to do it in the 80s.
Anywho.
And as Bandit says, it was the 80s, man.
I enjoyed a lot of the cartoons, but was there any cartoon, speaking of Bluey, was there any cartoon that your parents enjoyed watching with you?
No.
No?
No.
No, I was thinking that too. I cannot think of a single one that my mom sat and watched with us. Like movies, yes, but not cartoons.
My poor long-suffering parents. If it was like a Bugs Bunny,
yeah,
like the classic cartoons, those they'd watch with me. My mother would always complain about the squeaky voices. And she couldn't stand the squeaky voices. But my poor long-suffering parents, they took me to every cartoon movie, the Care Bears, the He-Man movie, the Ninja Turtles, the Transformers. My mother will always say how she fell asleep during the Transformers movie.
Oh gosh.
And they did what parents do. They bit the bullet. And I remember a few years ago, I somehow like caught online like rerun, like, I don't know how you rerun online, but I caught like part of the first Care Bears movie on YouTube.
They're terrible.
Yes! And I called my parents immediately and said, I am so sorry that I drug you to this. Oh my God in heaven. What you had to put up with.
Well, and you had good parents, and you were an only child. I was one of 4 in a religious household. So we didn't go to the movies to begin with. I was lucky we got to watch any cartoons at all. And if it smacked of witchcraft at all, then, which you were asking me about David the Gnome the other day.
Yeah.
Because that seems like it'd be right up my alley. And yeah, for sure it would be. But I don't think that we were allowed to watch it. Anything that seemed a little bit too spooky, or let's just say by the time the 90s rolled around, we watched a whole lot of VeggieTales.
Oh.
So, but now, like the progression of cartoons, Bluey is probably the one that I will volunteer to watch with my kids.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that I don't mind watching. All of my girls watched this one called Ruby Gloom multiple times that I don't mind. Phineas and Ferb, you know.
Yeah, like I wasn't sure about Phineas and Ferb the first time they put it on, and it took me a little while, but I actually kind of got into it.
So, like, I think one thing that modern cartoon, or maybe our brains are just mush now, but one thing modern cartoons has done is make them more palatable to the grown-ups in that house.
And the reason I think that is aside from just the times changing, but who are the cartoons made by now?
Okay, like the people who are watching the cartoons in the 80s.
The people who were watching the cartoons when they were our age.
Right.
Well, you know, so there are people who are, I think, in a lot of ways trying to create cartoons that parents can watch with their kids, or that the kids are going to like when they get older.
True.
Because it's a big, you got to wonder, the 2 movies we're going to be talking about over the next week are 2 franchises that have been around for over 30 years.
Yeah.
Through multiple reincarnations and reimaginings. So there's got to be something.
True. I think about things like Blue's Clues, and I was too old for Blue's Clues, but I was nannying and teaching little kids when it was really popular. And I know last year, I can't remember, Steve, the original Blue's Clues host, put something out online that was really sweet, and like everybody,
I remember that,
kind of freaked out about it. Like they loved it, and Blue's Clues kind of had a little bounce back. And I know, well, I mean, look at Bluey.
Yeah.
None of our kids are in the age range.
No, none of them.
Like my youngest is 11.
Yeah, and it's got as big a fandom of adults.
Oh yeah.
Than it does of kids. Like, adults love it just as much as the kids do.
Yeah, like it is, and it's very wholesome, and it's almost, I don't know, it's like self-care.
But it doesn't,
almost.
And I think this is the thing, and again, we can talk a little bit about this. This is going to come into play, I think, when we talk about the Transformers movie next week. Is that I think the ones that survive and the ones that stick in the memory are the ones that don't talk down to the kids.
Okay.
And I think that's something that, again, modern day cartoon writers who are in our age bracket, maybe even younger at this point,
right?
I think that's something they understand, is that the ones that have not lasted and the ones that didn't really cling on to the imagination were the ones that talked down to people.
Oh yeah.
And you can say a lot, but I don't feel like you were asking, like, what's the appeal of the Ninja Turtles? I never felt like as a kid they were talking down to me. I thought they were talking to me.
Okay.
And yes, that they were at the time, 30 and 40-year-old people writing for what they thought 80s kids. You know, that's why Michelangelo had that surfer dude persona for so long. But
now, did they end the show with a moral?
No, the Ninja Turtles never ended the show with a moral.
Okay. Here's a question I have for you.
Okay.
April.
Okay.
You say April and Donatello were always the ones who were supposed to end up together.
I say that the fandom, and this was aided by the 2016, I think, Nickelodeon cartoon, but there was always kind of a connection of April and Donatello, because in the original comic, she was a scientist. She wasn't a reporter.
Oh.
And since he was the
smart guy,
the smart one, they had that connection.
Okay.
Now in the 80s cartoon, none of that ever played out.
I always just got the impression that she kind of was their friend,
yeah,
or all of their girlfriends.
She wasn't even. See, the image I got is that she was like their older sister.
Okay.
Like there was never any romantic things in there. There was never any, you know, she was older than they were, you know, so probably in her 20s. It was hard to gauge ages. But, you know, but then they did the 2016 cartoon on Nickelodeon where Donatello had a crush on April. And that was like his story arc throughout the entire series, is kind of doing the Urkel thing of loving a girl who wasn't going to love him back.
I see.
You know, and people kind of went backwards into the movies and things and going, you know, there was kind of a connection between April and Donatello, you know.
And you're not just saying that because Donatello's your favorite.
And I'm not just saying that because Donatello was my favorite. But he was my favorite. He is my favorite.
Yeah.
Donnie for life, babe.
Okay, so we will get more into that energy here in just a moment.
Okay, before we go, there's one other one we should talk about because it's one of the only ones it wasn't an action cartoon per se, but what do you think? Were you familiar with Gem and the Holograms?
No, rock music? Are you kidding me? But was that up your alley?
I will say I watched a couple episodes of it because it came on after some stuff that I watched, and it was not bad.
Okay.
And I know it had a movie a few years ago that bombed and everybody hated it because it was shit.
Yeah.
But I believe they've been doing some new comics of it, I think.
Oh, that's interesting.
And like expanding on it, including LGBTQ things into. I think they made two of the characters that they always kind of hinted at were actually gay.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's true. If they have done it, then that's great. But that's another one that's kind of survived.
It has. I feel like the movie, they kind of went the whole Riverdale way with it, of trying to make it dark and like, I mean, sorry, Gem and the Holograms is just not dark.
Well, and I love, because I saw part of it, and it's like, the whole thing is like trying to find some message from her dad. Oh. And she does, and he's like, and remember, you're my greatest invention. It's like, you know, she has a sister. It's like that's kind of a bitch thing to do. Our parents not supposed to have favorites, and you're just like, you're my greatest invention, and the other one. It's like, God, jackass.
Jeez. Anyways,
Anywho.
All right, so we will take a short break, and we will be back in a minute to talk Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Look, I did it right.
You did, yay! Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You know, I saw this thing on TikTok ever since this movie came out. There's been like a resurgence of love for the early 2000s cartoon, which I don't
remember that one at all.
It was much sharper. Like I say that because like the animation was very pointy.
disappointing.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It wasn't a terrible cartoon. There's been this, and someone on TikTok was like, which is the best Ninja Turtles theme? It's like, oh, the 2000 one. That's like, sorry kids, 84 OG theme all day.
Not even the Vanilla Ice one?
Not even that, which wasn't a theme. It was just a thing in their movie. But OG Ninja Turtles theme song for life.
Okay, honey, calm down.
No.
So, tell me, okay, this is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. So, this is not based on the OG comics.
No.
This is based on a different series.
This is a brand new take. This isn't based on.
So not on any graphic novel or anything.
Not on any, like, a lot of the mutants from the Mutant Mayhem were characters that popped up in the various comics.
Okay.
Only a few of them, like Leatherhead, Bebop and Rocksteady, of course, Mondo Gecko, like they were all in the original cartoon.
Now, were they fully bad guys in the original cartoon?
Rocksteady and Bebop, yeah. Rocksteady and Bebop were always like Shredder's henchmen. They set the standard for idiot comic relief henchmen of the 80s.
Okay.
You know, so Bebop and, yeah, there's a lot of affection for Bebop and Rocksteady.
So this is a Seth Rogen joint.
Yeah.
Which, you're not a big Seth Rogen.
I am not. I find I can stand him in certain things.
Yeah.
But generally, and again, that's probably because there for a few years, everyone was telling me I looked like him.
Well, I think that's a compliment.
I do not.
I think he's a cutie.
You know, I do not think that.
Anyways.
But there are some things he's done that I have enjoyed.
Okay. So let's kick it off. So we have this really is an origin story.
Yeah, so we're rebooting again.
Yeah.
You know, how many times this series has been redone, rebooted.
Those poor turtles just keep swimming in the ooze.
I know. So the basics of the story are still the same. Turtles, ooze, mutation, Splinter. The Splinter in this one is not in any way related to Hamato Yoshi. He's, at least not that we're aware of. So he's not Hamato Yoshi, having been mutated. He wasn't the pet of Hamato Yoshi. He's not Hamato Yoshi reincarnated like in the comics.
Okay.
Or in the so he's just a rat who
found the turtles
and raised them.
Yes. And
taught them martial arts from watching karate movies.
Right. Which led to one of the cutest scenes.
It's a very cute scene. We're gonna have to talk about adaptation and interpretation here in a second. But at any rate, the turtles are now 15 years old and kind of having those pangs of, you know, wanting to break out and rebel and live their own lives, and they want to know what real life is like and what high school is like. Especially, I think an interesting kind of thing to look at is from a modern day teenager point of view. The turtles would be much more connected with what's going on outside.
Right, and they really play into that. Like, they have access to social media.
Yeah, and so they do TikToks and they do all of that, and, you know, but it just kind of, it serves to show them a world they can't be a part of.
Right.
And they meet up with April O'Neil, who tells them about this criminal who's been doing all these super heists, and the turtles get the idea that if we stop this guy, this criminal, then the world is going to accept us and not look at us as monsters, and we can go and live normal lives.
Right.
So they go to do that, and they find out that the criminal is a gang of mutants, led by Superfly, played by Ice Cube, and an all-star cast of mutants.
Oh my gosh! Seriously.
But Superfly is the Magneto of, you know, we got to destroy all the humans. So he has a super science plan to destroy
the humans so that they can live freely. So mutants can live freely.
And the turtles, of course, are like, hey, that's not cool. And, you You know, so there's the conflict. So they make the smart decision. They're not retelling the same movie, which has been done many times and superiorly in the 90s. So there's no Shredder, there's no Foot Clan. No. They kind of jump right to a lot of the more fantastic and weird and, you know, side characters that haven't really ever had their moment in the sun.
Right. But, like, if you look at it, like, logically, if you look at it, like, objectively, you know, Mutant Lizard isn't any weirder than Mutant Turtle.
No.
You know? So, like, they're not, they feel more authentic in this, I feel like.
You know, we mentioned this a little in the preview, or I don't know what we call the first thing we do, the
chit-chat session.
The chit-chat session. But I think one of the biggest successes of this film is in the 20, 30 odd years I've been a fan of this franchise and all of its ups and downs, that the Turtles felt authentically like teenagers.
Right.
They felt like kids. You know? Just...
I think that their personalities in this were a lot more well-defined than in some of the...
Yeah.
In some of the iterations I've seen, anyways.
No, I can agree.
Like, you clear... Like, Raph with his anger issues. Mm-hmm. You got Leo, who's trying to be a leader, but is kind of a hall monitor kind of guy.
Yeah, well, he's having trouble dealing with the bigger personalities of his brothers.
Right, and Donatello is like I enjoyed that they've kind of, he's still the smart guy, but they really did kind of make him more into like a tech geek.
Yeah.
Update him. And Michelangelo, instead of being surfer dude guy, he's like funny guy.
Yeah.
You know?
Which has always been his role in the... Right. But he wasn't like stupid. You know how... Maybe you don't, but I'm sure Turtle fans will remember the Michael Bay abominations and the absolute hack job he did on those characters. You know how in those movies these characters were at their personality traits, but they were their most obnoxious versions of those personality traits? But this goes the opposite way and makes them the most endearing versions of those personality traits.
They really are endearing.
Yes.
They're sweet little guys that maybe don't make good decisions, but that's part of being 15.
And that again, that is the thing, is everything they do, the logic they follow, this feels like the kind of thing a 15-year-old would think up.
Yeah.
That, you know, if I do this, then good things are going to happen.
Right.
You know, and they learn the lesson that you've got to do things for the right reason and not for personal gain.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But that's a thing that a teenager would do.
Let's talk April.
Yeah.
Okay, so what did you think of this iteration of April?
I thought it was great.
Okay.
I thought it was great. And again, April has had a lot of transformations and I would love, maybe I should do it, but I would love for somebody to write a book or something about the various incarnations of April O'Neil, because she has shifted and changed so much. Right. In all of the different...
would you say she is more the indicator of the times?
Yeah, definitely.
Like, because this April O'Neil feels very Gen Z, high school, kind of misfit, but wants, like, she's got big plans for herself, very social justice driven, not what you think of it as a female in a superhero comic either. Like, no. Very beautiful, but dark skinned and curvy, and like, and none of that takes away from the fact that Leonardo is head over heels for her. Like, immediately upon seeing her, thinks she's the most beautiful woman on the planet. And I don't know, like, that's something we don't see very often, is women of color getting this reaction, you know.
Or curvier women.
Like, he just can't stop talking about how beautiful she is.
Yeah, and I really dug it. And again, I think you nailed it right on the head. I think seeing how April is handled is kind of an indicator of where we are socially. I mean, in the original, she was the damsel in distress. She was the Lois Lane. You know, she was a plot point.
Okay.
You know, more than anything else. She was their window to the real world, but she was there to get in trouble so they could come rescue her.
Right.
I'm not going to go through all of the incarnations, but then, you know, like the one in the original 90s movie, she was, again, the audience point of view character. Less of a damsel in distress, but still kind of the real person. When they did the first Nickelodeon cartoon, she was much more self-confident. They trained her as a ninja.
Okay.
You know, the Megan Fox version was Megan Fox in a Michael Bay movie, so she was a sex object.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so yeah, she is definitely the kind of indicator of where we're kind of at socially, whether she's meant to be or not.
Okay.
And I personally loved this April. I thought she was funny. I thought she was different. I thought, you know, yeah.
Okay. And you did mention that Splinter is a different take on Splinter than we've seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the area you have the issue.
I don't know if it's necessarily an issue, because I liked Splinter, and Jackie Chan is the voice of Splinter in this. This is one of those things that you always feel bad talking about logic in a Ninja Turtle movie.
Right.
But it was something I didn't like in the Michael Bay version either, because in that one he taught Splinter was a rat. Again, he was a lab rat, I think. And he taught them karate and ninjutsu from a book.
Okay.
And in this one, yes, the montage is phenomenal.
And the cute tiny little turtles.
The baby turtles, everybody loves the baby turtles. And yeah, that was adorable. And the montage of them learning from watching Bruce Lee and all that was cool. But I don't know, this is a thing with a property like this, which has been retold and remolded so many times. I think we become very married to our particular preference.
Okay.
In the mythology, even for something like this, where the mythology's been changed so many times. But I've always thought it just made more sense when Splinter was some offshoot of Hamato Yoshi, where he would have the ninja training already.
Okay.
You know, because that just makes more sense. Because I remember trying to learn karate from a book after watching The Karate Kid, and it did not go well.
I can see more this idea that obviously you take it with a grain of salt, but the idea that you're protecting your kids and the only way you know how to do it is with like the Bruce Lee movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can see that, but once again, I take it with a grain of salt. We're talking, like you said, about a movie about mutant turtles. So.
Well, but here's the other thing I was thinking of, and this is like, maybe this is stretching, but that's kind of the world we live in now, where you have to kind of overanalyze everything. If this ooze gave them, you know, the ability to walk and talk and evolve, why wouldn't it maybe heighten their ability senses? Yeah, or their ability to kind of watch and adapt. So, you know, you can justify it.
Right.
You know, it can make it work. I liked it better than learning it from a book.
Yeah. I like the videos. And I enjoyed Splinter as the overprotective parent who just wants to...
Yeah.
He's seen some shit. He doesn't want his kids to have to go through what he went through. And he goes too far, but, you know, he redeems himself.
Yeah. But when you're a parent, and you can probably talk to this more than I can, but as a parent, don't we suddenly feel ourselves go too far sometimes because we feel like
I have to adapt. Like I have to monitor, you know, my protective instincts, especially as my kid gets ready to go off to college, and I have to like be like, okay, you know, this is what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You know? Now, the other question I have for you, spoiler alert, skip ahead, like, you know,
again,
a minute or two if
you're listening to us, then this is the spoiler podcast. So, like, we spoil everything, so just be aware of that. Anyway, go ahead.
So, in this iteration, the other mutants turn from heel to baby, and...
Yeah. Very good with the wrestling terminology, baby.
Thank you very much. And they join the turtle side. How do you feel about that?
I thought it was fine. Like, again, Rocksteady and Bebop have always been the bad guys, and maybe they'll switch allegiances again.
Right.
When they do the sequel, because they were already talking about a sequel to this. They're talking about a TV show based on it. Yeah. So
let's talk voice cast actually for
okay.
So you said Jackie Chan.
Yep.
As Splinter. Our turtles aren't very well known, but they are. I think at least two of them are people of color.
Yeah, Michelangelo and the young men, and I'm sorry we don't know their names.
No, this is the bad part about doing this one.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have access to my IMDb.
Yeah, normally we you know, if we're doing this at the house, we can look stuff up as we're talking, but so apologies that we don't know, but yeah, I know Donatello and Michelangelo's voice actors are black, I believe.
And then do you remember who April is?
No, but April is an actor of color as well.
Yes, I was thinking someone that has actually been in some things. So, but then our mutants is really where we see a lot of the cast here. It's like you said, Superfly is Ice Cube.
Mm-hmm.
Seth Rogen is Bebop.
Yeah, and John Cena is Rocksteady. This is the second toy cartoon or toy movie John Cena's done a cameo in this summer.
This summer.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Paul Rudd was Mondo Gecko.
Then the other ones were people too.
Yeah, Post Malone, one of your favorite singers, was
Post Malone, who I named my cat after.
Yeah.
Was the Stingray guy.
Yeah.
What's his name? Ray Fillet?
Yeah, Ray Fillet.
Yeah.
And I don't know who was the voice of Wingnut and Leatherhead.
Oh my gosh. I knew who they were, and I've totally forgotten.
Yeah.
Not Aquafina, because you would have complained about that.
I would have complained about Aquafina all the way.
But, like, really, really great jobs that they did here, too. You know, sometimes watching these things, you just kind of get hung up on, like, oh, that's who that person is who's doing this. But I think they really just did a great job with the voice acting in this. I don't even think that John Cena and Paul Rudd's voices were that recognizable.
None of them were. None of them were very recognizable.
I mean, Seth Rogen's was, but Seth Rogen always sounds like Seth Rogen.
Yeah.
No hate to him at all. I think he's doing phenomenal things. But yeah. So yeah, they did an excellent job casting the mutants.
Yeah. I'll say they did an okay job, mainly because all of the this isn't a dig or a negative, but all of the other mutants parts, I think maybe with the exception of Mondo Gecko, were so kind of small.
They were pretty small.
That it's like, I don't know, they barely said anything. So you have this, you know, John Cena and all this, you know, Post Malone doing the voices, but it's like they barely talk. So it's like, why'd you get them when they don't say that much?
I think they said more, but yeah. And, you know, Ray Fillet does this thing where he just wants to sing. That's why you got Post Malone there. Plus, I honestly think Post Malone just does anything he thinks is cool.
Yeah, I get that impression.
But, yeah, Mondo Gecko was a great character in this, I thought.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted the part where they're in this big street fight and they pick up his tail that has been cut off, and you're like, oh no, and then Mondo's like in the background, he's like, it's okay, it grows back. Like, That was pretty good.
But I will agree, kind of in the broad strokes. I do think the voice cast for this was really well done. Especially, I'm giving a lot of love to Jackie Chan, April, and the Four Turtles. The Four Turtles, especially, just
they did great.
They had great energy, and I was reading something, and you always take whatever you read online with a little bit of grain of salt. That a lot of the lines were improv. That they just kind of let the kids
do their
play
thing.
And just bounce off each other, and like it comes across. They really just seem like they're communicating with each other like teenagers, and not just like teenagers. And I think this is another thing that's very important to the Turtles.
Like brothers. Yeah,
that they're brothers. That they are a family, and they play off each other.
Yeah. Really,
though, the scene where they're hyphenating their names to sound. They're saying
Leonardo.
Which he could have shut the whole thing down by just calling Donatello Donatello.
Yeah.
He could have. No. That's something that it didn't bug me. This isn't a bad thing, but I just with this new origin story, they didn't explain how they got their Renaissance painter names.
How did they?
And it depends on the.
Okay, you can explain that to me later.
It depends on but the common one was that Splinter, in whatever version he either was a fan of the painters, or he found the book of Renaissance art and named them after the names he found.
Oh, okay.
So
I will say it kind of goes both ways for me in this situation. The animation style. I liked the things that they were doing that were new. I loved some of the little details, especially with curly hair and the scribble lines that really made it seem like a graphic novel. But it also gave me a headache.
Oh, same.
It gave me a headache. I think probably because it is geared to being a 3D movie.
Yeah.
There's a 3D option. And something about the way that, because I have astigmatism, I think 3D movies just give me headaches. But you have another problem with the animation.
I like the animation on the Turtles.
Right.
The Turtles look really great. Again, it's like they did everything that the Michael Bay films were trying to do, but did it right.
Okay.
Giving them little details more than just the belts, the headbands. I think Donatello had a hip pack.
Yeah.
And the cell phone tucked in it, and Leonardo had they all had a little bit of detail added to them.
Yeah.
So that was great. I liked that. But the animation style in general is just ugly.
I think it's supposed to be, though.
But it's so ugly that I don't want to look at it.
Oh. Well,
that's the problem.
I do have some issue with a little bit, my kid and I were talking, the proportions of the faces on humans were bad.
Yeah.
And they were bad on purpose, but it was, they all looked ugly.
Yeah.
Except for April.
Yeah.
April
looked good.
But the mutants I thought looked pretty good.
Yeah, they looked okay.
And the turtles looked good, but
the turtles looked really good.
So yeah.
And then, but like I say, another problem with the animation is that when things started speeding up and you were having fast action scenes, it became a mess.
Yeah,
and it was just
blurry.
Real. I don't know if our eyes are just too old.
Maybe that's it. Maybe it's one of those things you can only hear certain sounds if you're a certain age.
Yeah, but it's it's one of those things where I loved the movie, but the animation style kind of Into the Spider-Verse.
I think that watching it on a smaller screen is going to be more enjoyable.
Yeah. But yeah, the animation, the character models, a lot of it is just ugly. I was not a fan of it. And I understand what they were going for. Like you said, trying to make it look like not just a comic, but like a kid's sketchbook.
Right.
I get that. I can applaud that.
I do think that they needed, what they were trying to do was establish themselves as a different entity.
Yeah.
And it does do that, but it is it takes some adjusting.
Yeah, it's not a pretty film to look at.
But a cool one.
Cool, yeah.
that's really the only problem I had with it. Honestly,
Same
the
here.
storyline, the characters, the casting, I think was really well done.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And I think it goes to prove, we had said this, or I said this when we were watching Star Trek Strange New Worlds, is that when the story is good and the characters are good, the little things, the little details don't matter as much.
Right.
Like, I complained non-stop about the changes to the Turtles' backgrounds and storyline for those Michael Bay films because they were shit. And so those things stuck out more. But when the characters are good and the story is enjoyable and you want to spend more time with them, yes, I have my preferences to the Turtles mythology.
Right.
But the changes to it didn't bother me.
Well, and it also passes our other test of movies that are geared towards that age group, like that teenage age group, in that the 11-year-old and the 14-year-old enjoyed it, laughed about it, talked about it afterwards.
Yes, they did.
Referenced it, stayed engaged the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So it hits the parent audience for nostalgia, I think, and it hits the new audience. Because my kids aren't really exposed to the, like, you know what they are.
Yeah.
It's in the ethos, but, like,
Well,
they're not really Ninja Turtle fans.
Yeah, and I think we gotta give, you already have, I think I need to, pony up here. We gotta give a lot of credit to Seth Rogen and his crew who made this film, and you can see it. I'm happy to see, I think a lot of people of now, I guess, our generation, are kind of taking their cues from Kevin Smith, and when they remake something like this, you can see there's a lot of love in it.
Exactly.
And I don't hate to do this, but once again, you look at the difference between the Michael Bay Ninja Turtle movies, where it was clear he had no love of those characters. He had no love of the property. It was a paycheck job for him. Or, okay, I'll get off of that. You look at the DC movies versus the Marvel movies.
Right.
Where you can tell the directors and the filmmakers from the Marvel films care.
Absolutely.
Whereas the DC ones don't.
No. Yeah.
And I think that's the big thing. Seth Rogen and the crew he got are fans of this property. They're about my age, so they
grew up in that.
Yep. So they set out to make it with a lot of love, and that shows.
All right, final grade.
Final grade for me. I'm being a little generous here, but I'm going to go an A-
Okay.
on it. Part of me says a B+, but overall, I left this with a big smile on my face. I had a great time. I loved the Turtles and April and their relationships, and I'm excited to see where they go with it.
Okay, I am actually going to say A- too.
Oh, look at that.
It would have been higher. I know I'm a much more generous grader than you are, but...
A little bit.
It would have been
go
higher.
listen to our Haunted Mansion review for that.
If I would have had some... if I would have been able to not get a headache the animation, it would have been higher. But I think that it did a really good job. It had a lot of diversity and inclusion, and I say kudos. Like, way to go, Ninja Turtles.
Well, I like on that. We were talking about the inclusion.
Yeah.
I think that's part of what gives this one an energy that a lot of the previous incarnations have lacked. Just there's a younger feel to it, a vibe, and I think that's a good thing.
Right.
But I will say, kind of in closing, some people are saying this is the best Ninja Turtles movie ever. Sorry, folks. The original from 1990 with Henson puppets. That's the best one. Sorry.
Well, you're always going to say that about a Henson puppet.
And I'm always right.
This one was great, though.
It was great. This one is just as good. So it's just not better.
Anyways, join us next time when we will not be nearly as generous.
No, I don't think. Well, we'll be a little bit, but I think we'll have more to.
But we will also be bashing Michael Bay in that one too.
Yes, we will. Because you can never not bash Michael Bay. It's yeah. Anyway, but thank you for coming along. Thanks for listening. Thank you, my love, as always, for indulging and for being a part of this and making this such a fun part of our lives. I love doing this with you.
Oh, Paul.
No, Paulus. And thank everybody for listening. Thanks for coming along. And as always, drive safe, and we will see you at the movies.